do I need an authority? This is one of the important questions. And obviously, with this new FMCSA guidelines, most of us get confused. Obviously, we did a live training last week, and then we still get a lot of the emails and texts from people asking questions. And obviously, I think it will be better option to do a live training, obviously, and then share with the world what this all about. And then we'll be covering today, do I need an authority? And I get this question. People want to kind of become a carrier or becoming a carriers. And I do see people wanted to kind of move into being a broker, meaning they're getting their broker's authority. So we will talk about the advantages and obviously disadvantages. And I do also have this question: is am I limited to one carrier? So, like, if so, then why am I like limited to just one carrier? So, is there any other options to serve, for example, carriers? So, we will be talking about this. And the with the new guidelines, is this guidelines? It's a permanent. That's another, I think, important question. Is like, that's it? Is that the permanent? No, it's an interim. Interim means it's just for now. It's not a permanent. And I think dispatchers or dispatch service providers out there, I think you guys need to just relax. I think some people get confused about, like, this rule is all about, or the guidelines is all about making the dispatch services like illegal, right? And I do have, I really want to start with this. I think a lot of people going into this business, meaning running their independent freight dispatching businesses, and it's crazy enough, but I do see people who are going into becoming a carrier. They're asking the question is like, what's FMCSA anyway, right? So why don't we start with FMCSA, the defining the FMCSA, what it is, and why we have these rules? Is it the permanent, the rules that we have, or the guidelines we have? I think we'll be in an amazing live training, and then people also on TikTok watching this. But then I really want to serve you guys. If you have questions, please, I really want this. Let's engage, right? So if you really wanted to argue with me, that absolutely fine. So if you guys have questions, please post them. I'll just pull those questions, and then it will be displayed on your screen, and then we'll take it from there. So if you have any debate, like, hey, I understood this, but you were saying this, let's talk about this. And again, it's basically, I just can't emphasize important of, I just cannot, right? It's very important for you to guys know. So if you got this, if you know what FMCSA want from you, and if you're compliant, you're good to go, more power to you. But then a lot of people out there, they still get confused, and we just need some clarification. So as I said, why don't we start with what's FMCSA, right? And then we'll move into, do I need an authority? I do see a lot of people, meaning dispatch services, they're thinking about becoming a carrier. So if you wanted to do, yes, we'll talk about the advantages and disadvantages of doing that. And then obviously, like, what's the worst case scenario? So what with this rule, what would be the worst case scenario? We'll also talk about, should I become a broker, right? So if you wanted to become a broker, just be careful. If you're running a dispatch services right now, it's just be careful, don't mess up, right? So don't confuse with dispatch services and obviously with the becoming a freight broker. So why don't we start with FMCSA? So what's FMCSA? It's basically, FMCSA stands for Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and it's just not an off topic, but then it's just like, I really want to share something. But I just can't mention the name. But then I got one of our viewers, and she asked this question, said, "Come on, like, what's this FMCSA anyway?" Right? So we just basically define this. And another person asked this, like they confuse about the DOT and obviously FMCSA, but then FMCSA is a DOT, right? I think maybe it's very simple, but then I really realized that we need to give more information about this. DOT stands for Department of Transportation. It's in government, right? It's a DOT, Department of Transportation. And then FMCSA is one of the operating administrations for the Department of Transportation. So what I mean by that, I'll show you in a minute on my screen. So why don't I do this real quick so that I can show it to you, and then we start talking about this. So you guys got the DOT part of it, right? So the DOT is the U.S. Department of Transportation, and then DOT, if we can just hover over, you can see that DOT has operating administrations, and FMCSA is one of them. So basically, they are operating 11 operating administrations, and FMCSA is one of them, right? So basically, this guidelines is by the Department of Transportation. Okay, so let's talk about, do I need an authority? Authority basically means, hey, I want to just get my own MC number, my own authority, and I want to become a carrier. So I watched a couple of YouTube videos and just listening to people, what they're saying about this new rule or the regulation or the guidelines out there. And I do see people just misguiding people, not intentionally, obviously. They're saying, hey, listen, you can just get your MC number and then hire people or get people under your authority, and you can start dispatching this way. And you can definitely do that. But then remember, you don't have to. We also will be going over, last time we gone over the 9 factors that FMCSA guidelines stated that, hey, if you have these 9 factors in place, then you don't need a broker authority. So today in this video, we'll be going more in depth, and we'll be giving you more examples of the 6 factors that basically determines that, hey, listen, you need a broker authority. Little bit of I would say a little bit of information about is dispatching services illegal. Just, I really want you to just get relaxed. It's not about just making this amazing services, making them illegal. No Department of Transportation, nobody tries to make, not even brokers, not even carriers, not even trade associations, none of those people making this illegal. But the important to know or to realize is one thing is very important. People just don't want you, meaning if you are behaving as a broker and then you're not getting proper broker license and you're short a 75,000 surety bond, then obviously you must get it, right? And they're not saying that, hey, listen, you will get fined, punishment, which is $10,000 as of right now, and that rule is effective November the 16th, right? So, and again, it's not permanent, but it's for now, it's active, it's out there. So if you're not pretending that you are, or you're not doing the broker's job, and at the same time, you're not getting the proper broker license and you're not getting your surety bond, but please do. That's basically idea behind this. If you read the guidelines, like defining the brokers, defining the bona fide agents, and obviously freight dispatchers or dispatch services, right? And they're still, to me, they're still classifying. It's, if you read that guidelines, it basically says, listen, are these services we have this term itself. One of the commenters said that, hey, it was invented. It's vague. That means we don't even know what's this term means, and people get confused about dispatch service. Why? Because it's not about finding booking loads, dispatching loads, and working with multiple trucks and getting shippers on board, then finding trucks, and basically doing the job of a broker, and then without getting the proper broker license in a surety bond. So that's the battle. So I really want you to understand that that's the battle, right? So if you're not doing that, just relax and do whatever you do, right? So at the end, this video will be talking about, obviously, should I just work with single? Am I limited to just one carrier? why not with the multiple trucks or multiple carriers, right? We'll just define this. Some people just get confused about, well, it's obvious it's there, but then some people, well, obviously it's humble and they're like, listen, am I limited just one truck? So I had a carrier, he owns 26 trucks, and then should I just dispatch only one truck? No, it's just one carrier. Carrier, it's basically a person owns multiple trucks. It could be like a two and more, right? Just like two trucks, 15 hundreds, you name it. Then what about just one truck? So if there's a person owns one truck, that's basically what we classify them, or it's just accepted, I would say, terminology is that they are owner operators. Owner operators basically people who own the truck and trailer and they drive. They are carriers, right? They are carriers, but then the owner operators basically signifies, I would say, hey, there is a person actually operating his truck. That's owner operator. But then don't confuse that owner operator is actually a carrier, right? But then carriers, meaning like the carrier, the term that we know, the carrier or the carriers are owning multiple trucks. For example, I'm a former carrier. I was in the flatbed market, so I owned 4 trucks. I never drove, right? Like I don't have a CDL, but then I had company drivers. I was a carrier. So if you work with like a person like me, so that means you're working with just one carrier. A carrier can has multiple trucks, 10, 15, 20, 100, 200, thousands. I don't care. Carrier. It's just one MC number, if you will. So just what they're pushing right now, and then we'll talk about this later, it's just like, hey, if you're a bona fide agent, then you must work with just one carrier. Then questioning a lot of freight dispatchers out there, including my students, they get confused about this. Like, well, how am I going to make money? How am I going to survive in this business? Right. So, and we still remember we talked about this, like freight dispatchers, freight brokers, and obviously bona fide agents. Like FMCSA is still classifying, like, where should I put, or where should we put this dispatch services? And this is why it's just that rule. It's for now. They're still trying to get kind of, put in place, like, okay, so now it's exactly, we know who these dispatch services and these people are doing exactly this. It's they called vague, meaning not the FMCSA, the commenters, what they call the stakeholders, basically people out there just commenting, saying, hey, listen, this, I'll help you, FMCSA. The freight dispatcher is this. And a lot of people commenting, and then dispatchers out there battling, saying, no, we don't do that. And then trade associations, and then there are a lot of brokerage companies out there saying, hey, these guys do this, these guys do that. And it's really gets complicated. On top of that, what FMCSA sees is that these service providers, they're not limited to finding loads, booking loads, dispatching loads. On top of that, they do support carriers. It's back end office invoicing, maybe simple, I would say, accounting, not accounting, but bookkeeping. It's just basically supporting the carriers. They're not involved in managing the money, as they said on the guidelines. It's absolutely not, right? So basically, as I said, they're still trying to figure it out, like, where should we put this dispatch services, right? So then people out there, they're also managing carriers' social media channels. They're also building websites for carriers. They're not dispatching. Carrier comes up to, let's say, freight dispatcher and might say, listen, I don't need dispatching services, right? But then, so I do have a dispatcher in-house, my employee. I'm okay with the dispatching side of it, but I need a social media manager. So that means, so I can't provide services to these guys. So think about, like, there's an MC. We talked about that MC can have multiple trucks, 1, 2, or more, right? So then think about multiple MCs. MC, then in second, or A, B, C, D, for example, right? So these MCs, think about, and if I provide services, dispatching services, I might provide for this one carrier, just specifically finding loads, booking loads, dispatching loads. What am I saying? Let me define. When I say finding a load, booking a load, dispatching a load, I'll be using a load board, talking to brokers, and getting loads from brokers. I'm working with brokers, and I know by law I can't work directly with shippers. I can't do that. If I wanted to, then I must have a broker license. For most of the dispatch service providers out there, it's clear for them, right? Think about it. Even brokers, not talking about the big companies out there, but small, brokerage companies, they can't even get a carrier, the shipper on board, right? So they must have the marketing, they must have the sales team or sales force. Think about it. It's not even easy for them to get a shipper on board, right? So we're not doing that. So it must be clear for people out there who are researching it. Maybe they're watching this video and trying to kind of take notes like, hey, we need to report X, Y, and Z. Guys, listen, it's obvious. A lot of freight dispatchers out there, they know this. They know, and I'm not talking about for those people who are, okay, I want to behave like a broker. I want to get to talk to a shipper and then get some loads and then talk to carriers. No, we're not saying that. We're not teaching that. We're not favor of that. We really want those people to go out, right? That's end game. Just remove them from the game. So we support that. Meaning that's the bad thing, right? So if I wanted to do that, then please go and get your FMCSA. Now, get your MC and broker's MC and become a proper broker, and then with the surety bond. So then, if you really want to do that, then you can do that. So dispatch service offering to this carrier finding a load, as I said, it's for finding loads from the load boards. Second, finding a load, booking a load. Booking part of it is actually talking to a broker. I watched a video on YouTube. Someone said, hey, listen, when you're talking to a broker, you just mention your company name, dispatching company name, and you say that you represent a carrier. Well, if you do that, you will confuse a broker. Well, obviously, when you're talking to a broker, you're also talking to a dispatcher that this broker employs, right? You're talking to a dispatcher because brokers, majority of them, or most of them, they are out there on the marketing, doing sales, getting shippers on board, generating leads, making sales calls, those kind of things. But in the office, maybe it's remote, but somebody does the job, meaning the legwork. Back in office, think about it that way. Hey, I have loads. I want you to dispatch these loads on a load board. Then people will be calling, meaning carriers. You handle this. So that means that you're talking to, most of the time, you're talking to a dispatcher, broker's dispatcher. Let's say that. So now you're talking to a broker, and then this lady on YouTube says you can call them, but then when you call a broker, you tell them that, hey, you are an X, Y, and Z dispatching services, but you represent a carrier. Well, if you say that, you'll confuse like what? Like you are an ABC dispatching working for a carrier. Then it gets a lot of now, hey, listen, we need to, I don't know, should I contract with you? Like we have contract in place with your carrier. It'll just create a lot of mess, right? So what you do is you basically calling and just like, hey, it calls. Think about, I had a company called Prime Express, meaning the carrier side of my business. When my dispatchers call, when they call, it could be independent freight dispatcher, it could be one of my employees. They'll be like, hey, this is Jim from, or this is, Nancy from Prime Express. Well, I don't know that part of it. Can you do that? Like, I'm a dispatcher. I run a dispatching company, and then obviously I represent this carrier, and I'm booking the loads on behalf. It's just simply you don't have that much time to talk to this broker because it's a speed game when you're talking to a broker, right? So get to the point, book a load. Do you want it? Don't want it? Just leave. I don't know, but just be careful with that, right? So then dispatching part of it, we talked about finding loads, using load boards, not talking to shippers, then talking to brokers, actually negotiating the rate, And then dispatching part of it, this is where you calling the driver saying, hey, I book a load for you. This is from Houston to Dallas, Texas. Just go and pick up and deliver. That's basically it. So that means I'm working with specifically, which is one carrier. It's one MC, and maybe this carrier has multiple trucks, 10, 15, 20 trucks. Then what about if I wanted to serve second MC, which is another carrier, right? So we're done with this carrier. So what if I just wanted to work with this carrier, where this carrier don't want, let's say, back in office? He was like, hey, listen, I'm okay with the dispatching part of it. Like, can you manage my social media? Can you post on my behalf? Can you create content? Can you create a website or sales funnel or lead gen system? Anything like that, right? So can you write an article or a blog post? Can you just, answer my emails or something like that? So they need help. So that's the second MC. So what about the third company? What about this MC? When I say MC, it should be clear, like I'm talking about the carrier or the carriers. So then third MC, now this guy may need just the invoicing part of it, right? Hey, I deliver a lot of loads. I just want help invoicing. Can you do that? So I don't need your social media. I don't need X, Y, and Z, but I just need that. Can you do it for me? Like, what should I do? Like, do you guys have any inputs? Please welcome, share. What do you think in this case? Please share with me. Like, what do you think? What about in this case? Can I do that? Or FMCSA says, no, you cannot do that. It's illegal. In order to do that, you must have a broker license. What? Brokers, they don't manage carrier social media. Brokers, they don't write articles for carriers. Like, guys, I'm just generating ideas and sharing with you. Please just, let me know your comments. Let's talk about this. I really get confused about this, right? So, I'm kidding, but I'm clear about this, but then I'm making the point. Let's just tell me. But we now talking about the three MCs, three different carriers, right? So we were limited into one carrier. So let's define this. So now what about this fourth carrier? He's like, listen, I know the importance of review. So I have a website, but then I really need get reviews. Can you help me get reviews? Do you do that? Right. And again, with this, I'm just giving you the ideas, guys, where you can serve carriers with these multiple offers you have. Right. So maybe in the future, we'll be removing this dispatching side of it so that we don't confuse people. It's just, let's call it consult. I was teaching since the beginning. Any, student comes into my world, like, listen, don't say anything like you are a trucking company. Like, well, I do teach them so that they can get the keywords on their domain name, which is websites. Yes, because people, carriers specifically, searching for freight dispatchers, independent freight dispatcher, and this is what I teach. But then I say, well, you guys need to declare to your state is that it's not a trucking company, it's not a logistics, it's a consulting / management company. You are a service provider for trucking companies. As simple as that, right? Maybe in the future we'll be just removing that. It's just like, I don't know, Nancy's consulting company or Kamal's social media management company. And then we can offer this services to carriers, right? So we also talked about like what would be the like worst case scenario. We're going there. We'll talk about this. So what about this fourth carrier? He wants to just manage his reputation, meaning, hey, listen, I know the importance of reviews. I need to get reviews. Can you help me? Can I help him to get more reviews so that shippers can find him online if they're searching for him? I'm not connecting them, but I'm just helping this carrier. Maybe I'm running some SEO, meaning search engine optimization. Maybe I'm optimizing his business. It's just marketing services. Can I do that? Or am I limited to just one carrier? How is that possible? So obviously, like questions like this: should we become a carrier and invest in trucking business in the current market? So considering the current state of the market with fuel prices, meaning they gone up and not good paying loads. We will be talking about this when we go into like, hey, should I get my own authority? Meaning, should I get my MC? Now, with all of these confusions that people have, and then this is the reason why I do this live, so that I can share that, hey, listen, you don't have to become a carrier in order to dispatch, offering your services to carriers, let's say that way, right? You don't need to. So what would be the advantage, or what are the advantages and disadvantages? Let's say, hey, I really want to totally eliminate this confusion, um, that FMCSA has, or the people out there like trade association, whatever they have, like, I just want to be a carrier, let me become a carrier. So when you become a carrier, and then advantage is you have now more options. You have more options, meaning now you are a carrier. Now you can hire people, let's say, get people under your MC, and you can dispatch. Now you became a carrier. Please just take notes. It's very important. If you became a carrier, now you can go and talk to shippers without talking to brokers. Why? I'm not talking about the dispatch services. I'm talking about the carriers. Now you wanted to become a carrier. That's what it is, right? So then obviously you go, and then there are some requirements in licensing and whatnot. You need a DOT number, you need an MC number. Now you're becoming a carrier. Advantage: now you are a carrier. You can buy trucks. You can grow your fleet. You can talk to shippers, eliminate brokers, because you are a carrier. We're talking about the carriers. Now, what about the disadvantage of that? Disadvantage is obviously now more regulations. We talked about, and I did a couple of live trainings on this, is that trucking, specifically like carriers, it's brutally competitive business, capital intensive business, right? The money is the problem. Although a lot of people think that they are carriers, they're making a lot of money, but then money is the problem, and this is why we have these factoring companies, and it's highly regulated. If you cannot regulate just one thing with this new guidelines, and what about the other guidelines? It's just enormous. I was a carrier, I know it's not easy. There are a lot of compliances. It's just like rules, taxes. Sometimes it can get really crazy, and you get lost, and you want to hire people who can help you with just compliance part of it, with the tax side of it. You are a carrier now. You highly managed. It's just, that's what it is. So if you wanted to become a carrier, you need to think that. I'm not even talking about buying a truck, buying a trailer, investing, in equipment. I'm not even talking about that. Like getting financed. I'm not talking about that. So what about, like, okay, leave that. And also, I'm not talking about the current state, as this viewer said, that Avai said, hey, should we become a carrier and invest in trucking business with the current market? I don't recommend becoming a carrier in this market specifically. And if you're planning to build your trucking company off of a spot market rate right now, I don't recommend doing that. But then it's just my personal opinion. I could be wrong. I don't know. You do your own research on this one. So but then what about becoming a broker? So remember, we talked about this, like, what would be the worst case scenario on this? And again, repeating for those of you who just joined, it's not about making this dispatch services illegal. It's not about that. They realize the importance of the value that you guys provide into this market. It's huge, right? So the Department of Transportation, they know this, and you guys are awesome. But then, hey, listen, but there are some people out there just leveraging, and then brokers. If I'm a broker, I would get angry. Like, man, we're doing exactly the same thing, meaning talking to those people who are like talking to shippers without broker license, then obviously getting paid by the broker, working directly with brokers, bringing carriers, those kind of things. And there is a way to do that, but then you behave like a broker. Please go ahead and get your surety bond, which is 75,000, and then the proper authority, broker authority. Then you can do that. And nobody says no, and nobody holds you. Just you can go there and you can do that. But then that's the worst case scenario, that when you just have extra expense, rather than becoming a carrier, I think logically makes sense to become a broker than a carrier, because we just talked about that, right? I would just become a broker, then get my broker's, MC, and now I can do whatever I want, right? I can talk to a shipper, I can talk to a carrier. So if that makes you happy, you can definitely do that. But according to guidelines, you don't have to, right? You don't have to. As long as you follow the guidelines, we're good to go. So we talked about delimiting yourself to one carrier. Coming back, because a lot of people asked this question, and I read the comments on other people's channels. I admire them. They're doing their best to teach people, to share their knowledge. I admire them. Respect to them. And then I'm reading the comments. I'm like, the number one confusion right now, and again, there are a lot of confusions, but I think number one is like, if I dispatch multiple trucks, am I illegal? So will somebody get after me and then fine me, which is like $10,000 punishment or something like that? And to answer that question properly, on the live, the last live video that we did, we talked about the 9 factors that if you do this correctly, you don't need a broker license. So we'll talk about today 6 factors that, let me pull this real quick. 6 factors that, if you do this, then you definitely need an MC number, meaning a broker MC number, right? So we'll be talking about that. So before we go there, let me take questions real quick. So Anna says, so I can have 3 trucks registered to my name with just one MC. See, like this, so I can have 3 trucks registered to my name with just one MC. So if you have an MC, motor carrier number, that means your authority. So you becoming a carrier, you don't have a limit. As far as I know, you don't have limits how many trucks you want to add under one MC. Think about MC as your umbrella, and you can put I don't know, can't say the number, but you definitely are not limited to 3 trucks. So this, if you are becoming a carrier, right? So we're talking about dispatching service. So dispatching service, they don't need MC number. That's the beauty of it. Dispatch services, right? So if you want to become a carrier, then you must have an MC number. So if you have an MC number, then obviously you're adding trucks, assuming that you want to grow your trucking business, then becoming a fleet. Then if you wanted to become a broker, then you don't have to buy a truck, but then you have the MC number and then all the power you have, meaning talking to shippers, managing the money, whatnot, right? So I hope this makes sense, Anna. So if you have questions, please ask. So if you are a carrier, you will have an MC. This is why you will become an MC, and then you have to have an insurance policy so that you can activate your MC, right? So in order to be like, your MC should be active. How? By adding the insurance policy. So if you don't have an insurance policy, your MC is not active. So you can't basically operate, right? So I hope this makes sense. Dispatchers, they don't need MC number. Now, let me take this question. Camille says, what if I wanted to dispatch for a company and not to be an independent dispatcher? What do you think? Well, that's an awesome question. And then this is what I think. So let me share with you. And if you follow this guidelines, then obviously you're fine. Let me share this with you, and then we'll go from there. So that means, Camille, help me here. So when you say, I wanted to dispatch for a carrier, for a company, and not be an independent dispatcher, that means you are working for a carrier like in-house, meaning you in the office, like you're an employee. Then you must follow. So it's one of them. It's here. Let me share this with you. Let's go. Let me make this bigger a little bit. If you can read this, right? The sixth factor, and again, this is by the FMCSA, and they said the dispatch service is an IRS 1099 recipient from the motor carrier if you're a contractor, meaning if you are an independent dispatcher, you need to do this. But as you said, if I wanted to work for a motor carrier, then you must have a W 2 employee. So you must be a W 2 employee. Hope that helps. Is that helpful? Please let me know. Right. So I don't want to confuse you. But then, as you said, independent freight dispatcher, they mainly, so this is what I teach. So, how you can start your service-based business and offering your services. One of them is obviously dispatching, but we're not limited to. And I teach to obviously people and share a lot of ideas in this channel saying that, hey, if you're just dispatching, you're not going to survive in this business. Right. And on top of that, with these regulations, with these new guidelines, you just can't. Right. You must offer services. And this is where you must like get better of using or leveraging the social media, helping businesses out there, right? So hope that helps. And again, if you're a contractor, meaning independent freight dispatcher, you have dispatch service, you're a 1099. That's the regulation, that's the guidelines according to FMCSA. But if you're like, I don't want to become an independent freight dispatcher, then I wanted to just be an employee for a carrier, then W-2 employees must. Okay, so your carrier pays taxes, you paying taxes, all legal, right? So, but then for the W-2, then if there are people international, watching this, in order to become a W-2 employee for a carrier, and again, it's based on my knowledge. This is what I know, talking to my CPAs and obviously to my accountant, is that you need if you're outside the United States, you need a work permit for this, at least a green card to do this. So if you don't have that, then you definitely you can't be a W-2 employee for a carrier in the United States. This is what I know. I could be wrong, but this is what I got from my CPA and accountant. So please talk to the professional because they know, right? So this is my experience. Okay. Sure. Let's take this one. It says, I think we got this. Dinaza says dispatchers are representative for carriers. Okay. So we are calling in place of a carriers to brokers. Okay. You're talking to brokers, calling on behalf of carriers. So then I think brokers are just worried about double brokering and basing their argument on the few bad apples. I would agree with you. They are out there. It's just mess. I don't know the exact percentage, and we don't see this like bird eye view, like what's happening in the transportation with those people. It's a mess. You see, it's a mess because see now it's a government trying to figure it out. Like, oh, what's going on? Right? That we need to figure this out because it's a huge problem. So if you're just running a dispatch service and you're worried about like, is it illegal? Is it illegal? That's a small thing. This is huge. Like, this is why it's government trying to regulate. Like, hey, listen. So if you want to do that, I'm not stopping you, but then you just please go ahead and get your broker's MC and do this. And then a lot of brokers like it's think about, wouldn't you worry about this? It's basically your profit margins are decreasing. You guys doing exactly same thing, and you as a broker, you have your proper broker authority and your surety bonds. You obviously have regulations in place. You have employees. You have expenses, but then you do exactly same thing. But then you're not like I don't need broker MC. I don't need to hire people. I don't need to get these 75,000 surety a month. I don't need expenses, adding expense on top of what I have. That's the problem, right? And then double brokering itself is a huge thing. And trust me, when all this gets like permanent and the rules are out there, trust me, the freight dispatchers will be in better shape. Brokers will be doing their own thing, and then carriers will be doing their own thing, and then shippers obviously working with everybody, not including freight dispatch services. That should be clear, from the beginning. So hope that helps. Let me take this. What do you think is easier, independent freight dispatch or becoming a broker? Also, how much does a broker earn on a weekly basis? Just an estimate. Awesome question. Can't refuse. But then I'm not a broker, obviously, but I do have people, like friends and families in this business. I do have a couple of my best friends that they are freight brokers, and I approximately know, as you said, estimate how much they make. But again, it's basically different from, let's say, um, we'll come back to that, and I'll give you the numbers. I think you're looking for like estimate numbers, and I'll give it to you. So the first part is independent freight dispatching or becoming a broker. To me, dispatch service is the easier. Why? Because dispatching side of it, I think, is the first step. It's the fundamentals, right? That's the first step. When I became, I'll give you an example of what I mean by saying that's the first step. When I became a carrier, I was a dispatcher myself. I was dispatching obviously my own trucks. When I bought the first truck, I was dispatching my truck. I hired the driver. He was driving. I was dispatching. I was a dispatcher. And then I bought a second truck and I hired a driver, and then he was driving my second truck. I was dispatching. Then third one, then fourth one. Is like I was a dispatcher, right? So it makes sense to become a dispatcher first, dispatch other people's trucks, and obviously get the experience from there, and then become, if you decide to become a broker or uh, a carrier. Brokers, on the other hand, when they're getting their broker's MC number, and by the way, it's not hard to get your MC number, meaning broker MC number. It's not hard to become a broker. That's what I'm trying to say, right? Don't compare like, hey, I want to become a broker, then you can maybe comparing yourself to other brokers out there that establish huge big companies out there. Don't do that. It's like, I want to start my phone company, and I'm like, from day one, I'm comparing myself to apple.com, or Apple products, or Apple company as a company. Like, I want to build computers. Like, I want to build a computers that's the company I want to run. Now, day one, you're comparing yourself to Microsoft. It doesn't make any sense. So you can become a broker. It's easy, right? It's very easy. So if that's the case, and obviously your question, like, what's the easiest? I think both are easy, but dispatching is, I think, a little bit easier than becoming a broker. Why? Because there's like certain, obviously, like licensing, getting your MC, obviously your surety bond, they're like credit score involved, whatnot. But then that's basically should give you the, I would say, rough idea which one is the easiest, but then for independent freight dispatching is the easiest. So then brokers. I do have brokers as students. They, well, I'm not gonna, mention names, but if they're watching me, they can, comment, and we can start the conversation, obviously. But they decided to jump on becoming a broker, but then they instantly realized that, oh wow, getting shippers on board as a broker, freight broker, it's not easy task. Although I think most brokers or people becoming a broker and then taking the brokerage, let's say broker training or something like that, they're already sold on an idea of just like being on top, working with shippers and working with carriers, and they will be making a lot of money. That's not true, right? There are maybe 100, 200, brokers going into the market, and 90% of them failing within a couple of months. And how they're failing it, if they just realize that the marketing and sales, that what they need, and it's a hard work, they can't find the shippers, they don't know how to do cold calling. For those who do, they make a lot of money, right? So then on average, what I see, one of my friends, he's in general like freight broker, and he makes about, like, I would say, low six figures. But he does a lot of things, to be honest with you. It really depends. I do see brokers, making five figures per year. I do have, like, I know people like brokers, freight brokers, they're making nothing, right? It's just like, for them, it's just go and work 9 to 5. They will be making more money, meaning per year. So I have, I know for dispatching companies, they make six figures. I have students, they're just starting out, and obviously they're not making any money. But then I have students that are making a lot of money. It's like I can't give you the like, okay, the estimate is this. Like you can search online and you will, get the proper answer. But then I think this is the proper way of explaining this. I don't want you to sold. I don't want you to be sold on a just idea like brokers making a lot of money. Dispatchers can make more than a broker. The broker can make more than a dispatcher. But I'm not talking about the bigger established companies out there. Don't take me wrong. Okay, so they already built the army of a sales team or sales force, or in a marketing department. Their research department is the product development, department, whatnot. It's just a huge company. Just I don't know. When you're starting out, just you can't compete with them, right? They're in a different level. So let's take. I hope that helps. Dinaza says a lot of broker community posts I read really have no idea what dispatchers do and refuse to work with us. They are misinformed. I agree. The brokers, meaning most of the brokers out there, they. This is why I think when we started this conversation, and I said, listen, and like they still looking for the clarification with what these guys do, meaning dispatch services, right? So they think we are illegally operating as a brokers. They think, yeah, majority of brokers out there, yes, they think, and this is why they like asking the Congress and asking the government, hey, you need to pay attention to this. We don't want to compete. Like if they want to compete with us, just that's the open field. Let them become a broker. Just come and compete with us. That's what's happening. Camille says, thank you for the information. Absolutely. You're welcome. Let's go and take this. Bagdan says, hi, two questions. I have OP, owner operator. Is that owner operator? So let's see. He drives his own truck, okay? And have another truck and hire just another truck. Hire just another truck? Can I work with him and have others? Be honest with you, not clear about the question. So you have an owner operator that he owns and drives his own truck, and have another truck and hire just another truck. So when you said hire, like did you contract it with them? Please, Bogdan, I'll do my best to help you with your question, but please specify. So basically, to me, it's like you have three different owner operators. Can I work with them? Is that the question? So Avaya says, well explained. Thank you. You are welcome. You are welcome. Let me take another question of yours. One more question. Once the dispatch service is stable. Okay. So when you I really pay attention to details sometimes. When you say once the dispatch business is stable, what do you exactly mean? When you say stable, what that stable means to you? So this is very important. And because of that, I'll just move from there, right? So I really want to know that. What do you think should the next step be? Should they become a carrier as a next step or go towards becoming a broker while running a dispatch? Okay, so I'll just assume that when you said, stable, that means now you have, business that's up and running and you generating revenue, maybe six figures, maybe seven figures. I don't know the numbers, but when you said stable, that basically what comes up to mind. So you're making money with this, your business generating, life is good, right? So then what would be the next step? So obviously to me, it's like, it's all about your end goal, right? So what's the ultimate goal in the business? It's not about just dispatching. Don't take me wrong. I get a lot of questions like this. It's like, hey, I'm making, X amount of, dollars per month. Now I really want to go into venturing into becoming a carrier, basically. Then another, people or student, another person or one of my students told me like, hey, I want to just start my brokerage company. But it's ultimately like everything boils down to like, what's your goal with this? Right? So what's the goal? So if you have a goal, the ultimate goal, where are you heading? and it's part of it to become a carrier, then you make your own decisions. So if it's part of like it's that end goal is visible to you and you know where you're heading to, and it's like, hey, I should become a broker so that I can hit that ultimate goal, then you make your own decisions. But I can't help you with this. Like, what should I do if my dispatching service is stable? Well, what about different ventures? I don't know, running your own marketing agency. I don't know, with regulations, we don't know what will happen. Um, to me, it's like it's all about the ultimate goal. So for me, it's like now I'm really I'm away from being a carrier. So I sold my trucks and then trailers, and some of them repossessed. That's what happened, and a lot of businesses struggled during the COVID with this. And that's what happened. And then I just moved away from being a carrier and then start dispatching it, but at the same time start teaching it. Now I'm also, away from dispatching it. So I'm not gonna, dispatch other people's trucks. Although I enjoyed a lot, but then I really enjoy, as you can see, talking to people, sharing the knowledge. Is teaching aspect. This is where I see that I really motivated, and just basically the best days, like throughout the week, on Wednesdays when I have, with my coaching students, and we have people on Zoom and we start talking about business, we're talking about, marketing. This is where I get excited. And some people will say, like, that's weird. But then some people say, well, that's a good business. But then this is what I like. This is what I love to do. Teaching is my passion, basically, right? So my ultimate goal is to obviously run an online platform where all the trucking entrepreneurs will come and learn and get ideas. And as you can see, we informing people, we sharing the ideas with people. That's what it is, right? So education, it's my passion. Like teaching is my passion. That's what I'm trying to say. So what about your passion? So you see, maybe I don't know, when I started talking to people, teaching some ideas, the marketing tactics and strategies on this channel on YouTube, you guys see that like I can talk nonstop. Why? Because I love to do this. I love to teach people. I love to share my ideas with people. That's me, right? And this is why I think one of the reasons why I failed my trucking company is because it wasn't my passion, right? Running that highly regulated, capital intensive, and brutally competitive business. It wasn't my, intentions. But then businesses, that's really where I get excited in, obviously teaching the business. So hope that helps. Elias says, great, thank you. You're welcome. So Camille said, how can we become your students? Guys, I will just pull this email. So if you want me to just give you more information about how you can become a student, so that's the email. You can shoot me an email. But then every videos that I have on YouTube channel, there is a link for the startup guide. Before joining, just go download the startup guide on every video that I have on my YouTube channel. You can download, you can just take a look. And if that's something that interests you, like you want to do that, then obviously you can there will be an option to become a student. So that's what it is. Let me come back and take Bogdan's question. He has 2 trucks. So that means this owner operator has 2 trucks. So basically you have a carrier with 2 trucks. So then the one truck he drives, that means he owns a truck, but at the same time he drives, but then he bought another truck, right? He's a carrier. In another truck, another driver. Can I dispatch them in other legal or illegal? Okay. What we have right now talked about when you say dispatch, meaning you specifically limiting yourself, not delivering other services. You're like, hey, I want to dispatch. It will be like finding loads, booking loads, dispatching loads, finding loads using load boards, talking to brokers. If that's the case, based on this guidelines, it's okay to work with this carrier. It doesn't matter how many trucks he has. So if you're hiring another owner operator, meaning another carrier, this is where it becomes problematic based on the new guidelines. But then, and again, I said just hire or work with a carrier that has multiple trucks, meaning, I don't know, 10, 15 trucks, so they can dispatch at least, I don't know, 5 or 6 of those trucks, and you generate revenue. And again, if you think like, wow, we are limited and we just like dispatching just one carrier, and we just, meaning, limited to just one MC number, guys, it's not permanent. That's the good news, right? It's not a permanent. They're still figuring it out. But then as of right now, it is. It's just like if you define yourself as a bona fide agent, you're working with the one single carrier. And again, this carrier might have multiple trucks, and you dispatch. Think about, if you are, I'll give you some numbers, estimates. In order to just bring the, I would say, the point home, this is what I'm trying to say. If you work with the flatbed owners, and this guy owns about, let's say, 10 trucks on average, and again, it could be less, could be more, it depends. There are a lot of factors going into this. Does this carrier has direct shippers, direct lines, established brokers, established business? Like, there are a lot of things can go into this. Don't take on this specific number that I'm about to say, but just before intellectually judging this, just like, let's sink in and think about this. So in the flatbed market, people make about $30K, meaning $30,000 per truck. So if this carrier owns 10 trucks, that means you're helping him bring 300,000. So based on whatever the charges you have, meaning you're getting compensated from the carrier, how much you're making per month. If you're charging 10%, I'm just giving you like easy numbers, you're making about 30K per month. 30K per month. And you have a 6-figure business. Simple as that. Just one carrier. So just don't limit yourself like as far as like, oh wow, I'm working with just one owner operator. So if you're working with the one owner operator, then that's where it becomes problematic. It's just like there's no room to grow as of right now. It can change, right? As I said, it's not permanent. But then you offer different services to different carriers, but not dispatching services. So obviously, I'm not saying that you just like go like find the ways to just go away from this, guidelines. You can't. Law is there, and then obviously, if somebody reports you or reported to you, then somebody will come after you, and then they'll like explain, what did you do? And you must explain, right? So, and this is where I think, we need to get like more information on this. And again, for the dispatchers out there, relax. Whatever you guys doing it, as long as you follow these 6, I would say, factors, and I'll share them with you. So if you do this, then obviously you need a broker license, meaning you basically must become a broker in order to do this. So I want to share this with you, and then we'll just take it from there. If you guys have questions, please let me know. So dispatch service, and by the way, this is directly from that guidelines, and nothing changed. Nothing like this is exactly word by word from FMCSA. I just copied and pasted here because of the font. Maybe you guys, I just made a little bit bigger so that you guys can see. So dispatch services out there, if you do these 6 things, then obviously you need a broker license, right? So then the question will be, what if I do one of them and not the other one? So if you just mess up any of these, you're still required to get a broker, authority. That means you're not doing these. You're okay with all of these, 5, and then you messed up this. Just like it's guys, come on, it's a logic, right? Just if you miss this number 1, then obviously you need a broker license. What's the first one? First one is the dispatch service interacts or negotiates a shipment of a freight directly with a shipper or a representative of a shipper. Now, basically, in a simple language, if you, a dispatch service, going out and then talking to shippers saying that, hey, I can manage, I can arrange, basically doing the broker's job, right? That means you are required to have a broker license, and obviously the surety bond, which is $75,000. That should be clear, right? So then So see why they put this or representative. That means maybe you're like, hey, I'm not talking to a shipper directly, but I'm talking to a representative who represents these guys. But then no, it's you are doing the broker's job. You must have a broker authority, right? And then quickly moving on to a second, and this is the second factor that determines you need a broker license. So then the dispatch service accepts or takes a compensation for a load board from the broker or a factoring company, or is involved in any part of the monetary transaction between any of these entities. And these entities are factoring companies, shippers, and brokers. If you, dispatch service provider, if you are getting compensated directly from a shipper, you need a broker license. If you are a dispatch service getting compensated from a broker, you need a broker license. If you are a dispatch service getting compensated directly from factoring company, you need a broker license, right? And then with the factoring company, I did a live training, the last one, about this new FMCSA rule, and you can take a look. There is a confusion, but this basically means that you're not working directly with the factoring providing the services. Basically, you're not involved in the money exchange. That's the problem here. Okay, so not the factoring company's problem, but the money exchange is the problem here. So then moving on to third factor, the dispatch service arranges for a shipment of a freight of a motor carrier. That means working with shippers, right? Saying, hey, dispatch service says, hey, carrier, I can arrange, shipments, and maybe it's vice versa, talking to shippers saying, hey, I can arrange this, with which there is no written legal contract. So that's basically, it's just straightforward. You have a carrier on board, and you don't have a dispatcher carrier agreement. This is very important. It's straightforward. Then dispatch service accepts shipments without a truck. A carrier then attempts to find a truck carrier to move the shipment. The number 4 is crystal clear. Why? Think about it. It's dispatchers. Brokers, they do this. It's basically, it's a broker job. Broker goes out there, finds the load, and then finds the truck, or the matches the truck with the shipment. And that's the broker's job. So if you're doing this as a dispatch service, stop. You must get a broker license in order to do that, and surety bond, which is $75,000, right? I'm just making it clear. So then number 5, the dispatch will just go hand in hand with the 6. So dispatch service is a named party on the shipping contract. So think about, it's just basically, it's just straightforward, right? On a shipping contract, you're dispatching services named. It should be brokers, the company should be named, or brokerage company. For example, think about 2QL. 2QL must be there, not your dispatching company, right? So that's very important. So then, meaning on the contract. So then dispatch service soliciting to the open market of carriers for the purpose of transporting a freight shipment. That means if you have a load, and then you go to logging into a load board, and obviously looking for a truck so that you can match. And again, that matching is, it's just for brokers. Guys, hope this makes sense. And if you guys do this, or if you do one of them, you basically, you're out of the game. Like, you must have a broker license, guys. It's very easy. Don't overcomplicate this. You're fine if you're not doing this. If you're like, hey, listen, I'm just talking to brokers and helping my carriers. To me, you'll be fine as long as you're not going after shippers, meaning you as a separate entity, as a dispatch service out there, and you're going and talking to shippers saying, hey, I can find carriers, I can match, let's do business. It doesn't work, because it's a broker's job. It's clear, right? So if you want to know more about this, it's just go and see what brokers do, and then don't do that. So if you want to do that, that's exactly the same thing, but then please go and get the proper licensing, and they will welcome you into this competition. That's it, and they will do whatever you want. Meaning, as far as moving the ship and talking to shippers, carriers. So that should be easy. So if you're not doing that, And again, so, one of my students asked me, said, Kamal, like, what if I'm working with the multiple carriers? So if you're working with the multiple carriers, and again, what if MCSA said that it's a case by case, they'll be reviewing. It's not about like, oh, what you're doing. As well, to me, and again, it's as long as you're not talking to, shippers, and you're not doing the, broker's job, quote unquote. And if you're not exchanging the money, that's the biggest part of it. If you're just away from these two things, you're fine. Like, you're bringing value to the market, and to the market. And this DOT and FMCSA, they know this. The government knows that you're bringing value, guys. That's the best part of it, right? So, um, Ave says, I guess we are on the clear then, nothing to worry about. To me, be honest with you, nothing to worry about. It's like last these 2 days, especially on the weekend, like I'm with my family, and then I'm getting a lot of DMs and emails. I'm reading it. People get frustrated. I got it. People get confused about this, and a lot of I'm not going to mention those companies out there. They're posting these articles, and people get scared, and then they pulling the part of it where it scares people. It's not clear, but then if you read these guidelines, you're like, oh wow, right? So they're basically saying that we know that dispatch services bring value to the market.